So the time that I've been here on YouTube trying to actually create a channel here, I've been going through a lot of different seasons in terms of trying to understand where to go with this and how to do it. And I think I've started to see that I can't be focused on just creating for a specific outcome, like getting an audience or just getting attention. Really, it just doesn't work the same way when it's like that, and it kills the passion really quick, man. So I'm doing this new approach today because I wanted to see if I could just have a normal conversation where you guys actually get to know who I am, and we just talk a little bit about a specific topic that resonates well with me. So without any further ado, I'm actually going to talk about the changing seasons and how they do affect you. And I have one specific story that really hits home for me, and it's the story of a dog that used to live with me, and she died around almost 2 years now. Her name was Bonifacia. She was such an awesome dog, a little Chihuahua mixed with a poodle, and she was already sick. We already saw the signs. We already had an idea. I was walking with her in the park. Now I already had noticed that her energy was pretty weak, and for the most part, she was not. She was not really walking. She was just handling her business, and then after that, I was holding her. So and then that last day, man, the last day was so vivid because I remember it was a beautiful day, man, beautiful morning. There were no like we have a park really close to our area, and usually that's pretty kind of busy traffic wise. That day there were no cars, man. It was very calm. It was very quiet. Didn't even hear birds or anything like that. And in the morning, usually the birds are just all over the place. As soon as we walk into the park, and I'm holding her in my hands, and as soon as we walk in, man, I just feel her body go limp. And we knew that it was coming. We knew that that day was that the day was approaching. But I wasn't expecting it then. I really wasn't, and definitely not at that day either. Because actually, she looked totally fine, man. I mean, she had no sign that she was ready to go. I mean, actually, that morning when I saw her, like she was sitting in her bed and she was up and about, like she looked alert, like she looked okay. Little did I know is that she, it was definitely her time, and that was it. It was pretty peaceful actually how she went. And dying in my arms, it was tough for me because I was not ready to deal with holding her and feeling her actually just die. That part you can see it. I still get emotional just thinking about it now because that was a rough thing, man. That was a tough thing to go through. But and what makes it even harder is that every day that I still have two, I do have another dog, and we actually ended up getting a second dog afterwards, and we still walk to the park and everything, and I have to walk by that spot every day, so it does make it a little bit hard. Uh, yeah, okay. I think Ecclesiastes 3 verses 1 through 8 is the one that it has the most. It just breaks down the season concept, and it makes it make more sense. So it says there is an occasion for everything and a time for every activity under heaven, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, and a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, and a time to throw stones and a time a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to avoid embracing, and a time to search and a time to count as lost, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak, and a time to love and a time to hate, and a time for war and a time for peace. So I think this verse is the exact example of what it is I'm trying to get across when it comes to this message. My dog dying, I remember the hardest transition when she died was the discussion I had with my wife on whether or not we should get a new one. And believe it or not, we weren't sure about that until we saw an episode of Family Guy where the dog in the show died, and the family, when they got a new dog, they felt like they were replacing the old one. And this is where the story really just made my wife and I. We were watching at the same time. We were both like, okay, so I guess we need a dog here because I remember we felt such an empty void when our dog died. Like she was such a big part of our lives, man. She was there every day for the longest time, and now she's not, and it just left a huge gap. And the way that the show explained it and the way that we understood it was this, I mean, it's not a replacement, it's filling a space that both of us needed filling, us as a household, we need to fill that space. That our dog was a very precious dog, we loved her very much. And now she has left us, and now the space that she had occupied in our lives is no longer there. And now on the other end, there's a dog that needs a home. And it was a perfect fit at that time. And it just made it easier for us to transition into that, because now it made us realize we're not replacing her. It's not like we gave her away and just got some other dog. I mean, if it was up to us, we would have kept her for the longest time, until, until the way that we did, until the very end. But at no point should we have felt like it was something that we were replacing. And this actually compares well when it comes to how I've gone through different schools of jujitsu too. I've came a tradition where there's some moments where I can train and sometimes I can't. And on the days that I've had stretches where I can't, because I'm like in between schools. I mean, that has happened at least once in my life. And when it did happen, I do remember the feeling of, like, man, I just not gonna be able to train the way I was before. I wanted to do it. I was doing it every day at that time. And things happen. And when they did happen, suddenly now I'm in a place where I have to accept that I can't be training like I was before. So I'm gonna have to just buckle down and, you know, find a way. And at that time I couldn't find one. There was no way for me to actually continue doing the training. And then what made it interesting is how jujitsu came back into my life. It wasn't something I kind of gave up for it at some point, because I didn't think I was going to find a school that I felt comfortable with. And then one day I'm just driving by a gym that's literally 2 blocks from where I live. I mean, like, it was right there. I'm driving by and I see that there's a sign of a jiu-jitsu school, and I'm just like, wait a second, this has been here. And sure enough, it was there for, like, I was living at that place at the time for like maybe a year or a year and a half, something like that. It was there the whole time. Had no idea. They never had a sign or anything at that time, so I guess they were just up and coming. And I only found out once they had the sign up, and I think they only had it up for like a week or two when I found it. So the very next day, I was like, okay, good, I got to do this. That's what I've been looking for the longest time. I haven't had it for a long time, and here it is again. I got to do this. And so, I mean, just finding the school was the victory, man. That was a victory in itself. Just finding, our new dog Daisy, who's the one who filled the space for our dog Bonnie. That was a victory in itself, man. I remember the first day that she came in, we were so happy, man. We were, dude. It was a cool moment. It was such a cool moment. She was so scared. She was a little puppy, this little thing. And then within 2 seconds, man, suddenly she's, "Oh, wait a second," curious and exploring, and then, she's just been happy ever since, and true blessing in our lives, something that we wanted, and, we were able to get it. And, our last dog, she gave us that. She already had given us that, so really, our dog was just filling in the role of what our previous dog had. And, now I gotta realize, it's been over a year already, and I've had our other dog, Daisy, now for over that time. And man, I wouldn't trade her for the world. But I have to recognize that in order to get her, I had to lose something. And that was really the truth. Because if our other dog never died, I would have never seen her before. And I also is something I have to respect the fact that, even though my dog was gone, and yeah, it hurt. Uh, Something came and filled in that void, and that something wouldn't have been around had she had still been around. So things needed to happen for those type of conclusions to be realized. And it's something that I also recognized in jiu-jitsu as well. With people coming and going. You got friends who you've trained with for years and stuff, and suddenly they're not there. And people you confide in for going for information, suddenly they're not the ones that you can confide in anymore. Things happen. Transitions like these things, they tend to happen. And we have to be able to adapt around those things, because there is no avoiding that. You can't avoid the changes that come in life, because the fact is that they're coming. And the question, I don't think, is ever going to be, are you really ready for it? Because I don't think you'll ever be 100% be ready for it. But you can always prepare for it, so that way the blow is not as significant. And that's been how have felt when it comes to just at life in general, really. And even when it comes to training, if I remember going to a tournament or anything like that, and I want to, obviously I want to win and stuff. But I have found that the more prepared I am, the less excuses I have if I ever do end up losing, which yeah, it's gonna happen, and I'm okay with that. But I don't want the excuses to come of, should have trained harder, should have, I should have put in more work or anything like that. Those types of excuses I can't just accept, because those are definitely things that are within my control. Now, the outcomes that happen afterwards, if the person deserves it and they're better than me, hey man, they deserve it. They're better than me. I can accept that type of loss. So long as I learn from it, I don't even see that as a loss, really. It's just another stepping stone to another phase in how I approach this game. I've I wasn't the best dog owner back in the day either, but as the years have gone along, you really learn how to do things the right way, and your dogs even notice it. I mean, they become the more loving the more they see that I've put in the effort to try to take care of them. And I think that also is how I see um this game of jujitsu that I've been playing for a couple of years now already. Where I've had when I first started training, before I even went to my new school, I had a friend who was training at that school and he knew nothing at that time, so I was able to beat him and stuff, and now he's in the new school. He actually found the new school before I did, and we had a lost touch for a little bit when I had left the school, the first school that I was in, and when I found him there, man, he was already. He was a white belt when I first started, and then when I found him there, he was a purple belt. And man, whatever days I've had of me thinking that I could beat him before, or whatever days I remember of me beating him before, those are long gone, man. I mean, he beats me every single time. I mean, convincingly, and it's just a test of it. I mean, like the guy's a great example of somebody who puts in the work, man. And I mean, this guy puts in the work. He really does, man. There's no doubt about it. And you could see the outcome of that work, man. I mean, I've seen him get beat before, but we're talking about people who are like the super elites already. I mean, he's already at that point. He's a brown belt now. And man, I try to just get a couple of points on him. Maybe do a sweep or a takedown. Not happening. I mean, the guy has really, really narrowed down his game. And you would think that, oh, I should feel bad because I'm losing to this guy. You know what? I'm not. Me and him have become the best of training partners. I train with him all the time now because he's got the skill that I wanted. And yeah, sure, I want to beat him one day. I mean, it's a goal that I have. But overall, man, it doesn't matter as much as I thought it did. I mean, there was a time where it was a big deal. I gotta beat him. But now that's not really that important anymore. Now what I find important is that whenever he does do something to me, right away I'm asking, okay, what did you do right there? How did you do that? What were you looking for? So I can break down how to do it. And the best part about it is that 9 times out of 10, when he does beat me, it's not usually the same approach. Like he shows me what he did, I adapt to it, and now when he's beating me this time, he's adapting to what I've adapted to, and now it's just a constant back and forth of me adapting and then him still beating me. But then me adapting again and then maybe lasting a little longer, or maybe him beating me in another way because now he sees I adapted to this. So I see the improvement in my game there because I basically measure it on how he is choosing to play his game. And what he chooses now to play his game is he doesn't. Before it was a lot easier, and now at least I see him putting in the work, or I see him making an effort to actually try and beat me. He has always been the bigger guy. He's always been the stronger guy. He's always been the faster guy. So now he's also got the technique and everything on top of it. So it just leaves me in a position of I am here to just get beat. But if I only go with that approach, uh, I'm never going to get anything out of it. So what I have learned is I just basically I lose, I try to learn something from it. So that way it doesn't feel like a loss. And then now, whenever I am fighting other people or going against someone else, and uh, they start seeing all my adaptations, and now it's affecting their game. Now whatever I have been adapting myself based on what I've been learning with him, I go and I apply it to other fights, and man, I feel. I mean, yeah, he dominates me, he beats me, but then like it's the exact inverse whenever I'm fighting to other people. I feel like I can really take control of the situation. I feel like I feel more comfortable, more confident because it's like if I can survive with this guy, who's clearly legit, you know, player at this game, then hey, maybe I can be competitive and competitive with other people, and it usually turns out that way. Losing, whether it's a match or whether it's something that you lose in life, like a person, even a pet or anything like that, I feel like they all have their place, meaning that, we all have to acknowledge that loss is something that we have to go through at some time. We can't avoid it. And I don't think that's something that we should avoid either. because avoiding it just means you're not preparing yourself for the reality that you're going to be dealing with at some point. You're going to lose at life sometime. There's going to be there's going to be losses that are going to happen. You're going to have people that you lose sometimes. It hurts. I'm not going to lie to you, man. That is something that definitely hurts. But you have to go through it. And also, it tells you something important. The losses that hurt, they do tell you something important. Um, at the base core, it tells you one thing. You love this. This is something that matters to you. If it hurts, it matters. And if it matters, that means that you care about this thing. So if you are losing a lot, whether it's in jujitsu, whether it's in life or anything, and you feel that hurt, hey man, look at the bigger picture. You care about this. And if you care about this, that means that you have to do something to make those losses into not a loss, into something that it can benefit the thing that you care about so much. And you know, I wish that we could win more often and we could feel more comfortable with it. The truth is, I have learned more from the losses in my life than anything else that I've gone through because all those wins and everything, I just overlook those usually and I just go to the next one. But the losses are the ones that make me really reflect. And when I reflect more, I just see the progress more because it shows me, it tells me there's something here there that you're missing. And the feeling that you're feeling, that feeling of disappointment or anything like that, that's your sign that this matters to you. And not only does it matter to you, but now you need to make something different now. You need to make a change here because if you allow this to continue going the same way, it will matter for a time, but eventually it's not going to matter as much to you. That's why I usually see a lot of people quit a lot of times, and not just in jiu-jitsu, but in anything else, man. You go through something that's hard, you see that it's hard, you want to get better at it. You have the urge or desire to get better at it, but then you see the road that it takes to actually get better. And now here comes that question. Do you really want to go down that road? Do you really want to take that road? You know, that's the make or break point. If you're willing to take that make or break point, then you're willing to go through all the sacrifices that you need to get to a different point in your life that maybe will be better, depending on how you approach these things. But if you continually decide to let things go once you see that it gets a little too hard, if you allow yourself to avoid the fact that losing is going to happen, if you ignore the fact that sometimes you're going to take a loss. Sometimes people you love around you are going to lose. If you do that things, you're going to be up for a rude awakening when those things actually do happen. So prepare well. Don't leave yourself any excuses whenever it comes to losing. Um, accept that losses do happen, but always learn from it so that way the loss doesn't become reciprocal, or not reciprocal, what's the word I'm looking for? So the loss doesn't become repetitive really, because I do think that if you're not learning from a loss, then you're just asking for it to be repeated. And yeah, I hope you like this type of content. I want to see if I could do more things where we just talk about some certain things, and uh, I do hope you. That's all I got. Love you guys. Take care.